is going to be on the draw thanks to our modified play draw rule, Rudy being the higher seed. So, yeah, I mean, you're going to have to recoup that disadvantage somehow by, being a half turn behind. And a mana creature on 1 is a good way to do exactly that.
A half turn behind?
Yes, because you're...
Is that even possible?
Yeah, because you're only a turn behind half the time, right?
Okay.
Right?
Sure.
So Rudy getting to play first is, I want to say he's going to be the control, but I feel like it's going to be less of a, control versus beatdown dynamic and much more of a racing type of game, if I had to guess.
Yeah,
but being on the play
is... It's hard to see this getting bogged down into any kind of control.
Yeah.
And Rudy starts off with the Avacyn's Pilgrim. We said that Joseph did have more of the one-drop elves, but here it's Rudy with the advantage. And Joseph Greer unable to take that half-turn back, but no, he's not missing a land drop. Just casts a Voice of Resurgence on 2.
Yeah, Joseph Greer basically 2 turns behind, or 1.5 if you prefer, thanks to that Avacyn's Pilgrim and no mana creature of his own to answer with. A Scavenging Ooze is going to be pretty good if it gets active. As the game goes longer, more creatures are trading off.
I don't...
Looks like Rudy's hand is fairly mana heavy. Wow, Domri Raid. That is a very nice sequence. Voice of Resurgence taking down a Scavenging Ooze while it's still in its infancy, getting an elemental token for his troubles. And now Joseph Greer is kind of on the back foot, facing down a Planeswalker and 2 creatures with an empty board. Elvish Mystic not quite on time.
But Mizzium Mortars is.
Yes, take down that elemental token so that the Domri Raid is going to have to do some work. And it does! Loxodon Smiter comes right off the top for free. Avacyn's Pilgrim gets in for a point. No, it does not. We're going to trade off, and Loxodon Smiter comes down for Rudy. And looks like Rudy's hand is lands, but his board is pretty daunting.
That's interesting that Joseph Greer chose to trade the mana elves there, but he's got a 4-drop, so his plan anyway was to drop a 4/4 and try to trade with the Smiter.
Which is not going to work with a Gavany Township there.
Oh wow, Rudy Briksza with the utility land. The last hurrah for the utility land. Singleton Gavany Township in his deck.
So
that's a big game.
That was actually an interesting choice there. He could have sacrificed his Domri Raid to pump the Gavany Township and fight down the Rampager. He chose to plus it and is going to try and play defense, protect the Domri Raid, going to take a more controlling... Oh, no, he's going to do... going to get the best of both worlds.
Yeah, I thought he might take that play too. Pump the Smiter to a 5/5 with Township.
But you lose the Domri Raid if you do that, so it makes sense. And it looks like he hit another Loxodon Smiter off the Domri Raid activation. So even if Joseph Greer took the 4, looking to attack the Domri Raid back with the Rampager, Rudy had another Loxodon Smiter to jump in the way. And turn 5 is a little underwhelming for Joseph Greer. You really want that to be a Thundermaw Hellkite and kill the Domri Raid, not a 1/1 and a 3/3, facing down a 4/4 and a Planeswalker.
Curious why Rudy didn't just pump his Smiter last turn rather than cast a trade and cast another one. I could understand if he had 2 plays.
Well, because he then, if he's fighting, he loses the Domri Raid, and if he's not fighting, he opens himself up to, say, another Rampager from Joseph Greer. So it's just a more conservative play,
well, I don't
which
even
makes
mean
sense.
On the fight. I mean when he attacked and Joseph Greer offered the trade.
Oh, yeah, that actually makes sense. So Hellrider does come down, finish off the Domri Raid, and deal 3 to Rudy, and now Rudy's got to sort of close the door. He's definitely generated a significant advantage here, but he is flooding out fairly hard, and his window is potentially closing as Joseph Greer is getting back into the game. Gavany Township does get activated here.
7 damage.
Half of Joseph Greer's life total. Now facing lethal. He is in check, as they say. As I say.
And the Hellrider, not great on defense. It's just a hill giant, so he's going to attack with it. No, I'm just going to hold it back. He's counting the damage. Yeah, you're dead.
Yeah. Looks like his hand is Rampage or Strangleroot Guy. Strangleroot Guy is definitely a good defender, even though it doesn't trade with anything. It chumps very effectively, and then you can attack back for 8+4. So theoretically, he is lethal on the backswing here if Rudy just attacks and activates Township. Looks like he drew a Boros Reckoner for the turn, though, so that could change things.
Attacks just with a Smiter, and the Strangleroot Guy chump blocks as expected, and then undies. Back into play as a 3-2. At the 5-5 Smiter, a 2-2 Avacyn's Pilgrim, and now a 3-3 Boros Reckoner. Boros Reckoner playing excellent defense here.
Joseph Greer has a Rampager, but he doesn't really have a way to make it good. Like, it's very likely he's going to end up having to just cast it, which means that the Boros Reckoner is going to win the game for Rudy. So I feel like he's going to have to attack in some way that gets Rudy to block so he can Rampager. That's his only way to kill the Boros Reckoner. But then he has to leave another guy back to block the Smiter. Well, he's taking 4 from the Reckoner activation because of the Gavany Township is going to make it up to 4, which makes the Avacyn's Pilgrim lethal also, so he needs 2 blockers. So it looks like the writing's on the wall unless Joseph Greer can maneuver this game state in a pretty interesting way. He's going to have a quite a powerful sequence to get out of this.
Yeah, what would that sequence include? Pretty much almost has to
Not
be...
casting a Rampager. That is not the answer. And now a giant Boros Reckoner is likely to take over the game. Rudy trying to figure out what his attacks are here. He doesn't want to get too reckless and die to a backswing, but it looks like it's pretty safe to attack with at least 2 creatures, if not the whole team.
Gavany Township, Singleton, and Rudy Briksza's deck really doing the work.
Yeah, it's a powerful land once it gets active.
2 activations, 5 extra power. And in a semi-mirror match, really important for your creatures to outclass their creatures.
Absolutely, and that's exactly what he's doing here. Rudy trying to piece it together, figure out what Joseph Greer could possibly have or possibly draw to finish him off. Doesn't want to be
just attack.
Doesn't want to be reckless here, and
no, you want to be Reckoner-ish.
Yeah. Looks like he decides on Smiter and Boros Reckoner. I think that's a fine attack. No real good blocks on the Reckoner ever, which means that you're priced into just chumping the Smiter, but you're taking 5 then with a Boros Reckoner in play. It's going to be pretty impossible to win from that spot.
Well, what if he draws a Thundermaw Hellkite?
Thundermaw is 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. That's Xaxes. Wow, he actually dies to a Thundermaw here.
Joseph puts the card in his hand.
Looks like not a Thundermaw.
Oh, is that enough?
That's a Hellrider.
6 triggers?
6.
Oh, wow.
6. 12. That's 12.
So Joseph Greer...
Rudy tanked forever to make sure that he didn't get peeled on, and then attacked into a way that he's dead to, what, a 6-outer?
Thundermaw.
3 Thundermaws and 3 Hellriders.
Wow, that's...
I'm not sure if he had a better attack. Like, maybe he sends 1 guy? Maybe he...
Well, if he attacks with
doesn't
all
attack?
3...
I feel like he has to attack. If he attacks with all 3, then 2 creatures have to chump.
Right. And then not enough damage on the backswing. Okay. So here we are.
That was an interesting finish to that game.
I'm going to have to think about that a little bit more.
Yeah, same.
But we have something for you to think about, ladies and gentlemen in the audience.
Trivia time.
Trivia time.
Is it my question?
It is your question.
Okay.
What do you have for us?
There is a card in M13 that is rotating.
M13? That was the one last year.
Yes. It is soon to be gone from our standard environment.
Okay.
A card that took a long time to pick up, but is now at least a 3 of, if not a 4 of, in a bunch of aggressive decks. Big Dragon, Mythic from M13.
Big Mythic Dragon.
Yes. There's a
M13.
pseudo replacement in Theros too, but I don't know if it's quite as good. We'll
Okay.
see.
So, what is the Big Mythic Dragon from M13 about to rotate out of Standard? If you know the answer to that, tweet us at SCG Premium. Is the hashtag at SCG Premium. Accuracy, not speed. We
Yep.
will select a winner from all of the correct answers that are
At
tweeted
random.
within a time frame at
Yep.
random, and that random winner will win 12 months
That's a lot of premium.
of premium.
That means you could read like 3 of my articles. Yes,
In a
that's how
year.
many I average.
Well, I'll tell you, I have SCG Premium, and one of the best things, not actually an article, it was a video article, I guess you can call it, by Huey Jensen, Hall of Famer elect. He did an M14 sealed deck tournament on Magic the Gathering Online. It was a fantastic video. It was one of the best videos I've seen. The
It
way
was
he
very good.
explained things, right down to why he was tapping, his Elvish Mystic versus a Forest or vice versa on various turns, just to represent different things. I have not really enjoyed a video as much as I did that one in quite some time.
Huey's a genius and very good at Magic, understands the game on a very deep level, and yeah, he is extremely good at explaining the thought process. There are a lot of people that are very good, on that level of William Jensen, who just
But
kind of
can't-
play.
But can't verbalize it.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. But Huey is very good at exactly that. He is a great teacher. I definitely agree with that. Check out his videos. He has 2 or 3 videos up now. You should watch them all. They're all very, very good.
Okay, so back to the action. Joseph Greer was the lower seed, but he took the serve in
Yes.
game 1
And that's
in surprising fashion.
yeah, that is a big game. Being able to steal initiative away from Rudy, starting on the play in this aggressive mirror, and it definitely gets a little interesting post board because we have Volcanic Strength
Oh.
versus Unflinching Courage.
Yeah, there you see Joseph Greer has 2 copies of Volcanic Strength, the aura that gives +2/+2 in Mountain Walk.
Yes, a limited
Surprising.
unplayable.
A very surprising card that has seen a lot of sideboard play because of the popularity of these red decks.
Yes.
Notably, it not only grants the toughness bonus that gets you out of the burn range of things like Mizium Mortars if you put it on a Hellrider, but that Mountain Walk, making your creatures unblockable a lot of the time.
And +2 power. Like it makes it hit really hard, unblockable, and really hard to kill. That's a pretty powerful enchantment for only 2 mana. Rudy does have, I think, an Oblivion Ring, maybe, one Oblivion Ring as his sort of re-answer to that. But I think that more likely he's going to look to Unflinching Courage up a creature and just outrace it.
Yeah, so very similar card there, +2/+2, but the lifelink
Yes.
maybe will matter more.
Instead of
than Mountain Walk.
unblockable, it gets Trample and Lifelink. Lifelink, the huge race turner. Trample is good, but it does open you up to double blocks. You can still, that creature can still die in combat, whereas the Volcanic Strength creature is likely just gonna walk all over the mountains. So, swings and roundabouts. There are drawbacks and boons to both sides. It's going to be an interesting little sub game that's going on there. Rudy also has 2 Selesnya charms that the only 2-color deck does not have access to. The Selesnya charm not only takes out a Thundermaw Hellkite at instant speed, but also makes greatly narrows the scope, the range of creatures that can be Volcanic Strength. Like if you Volcanic Strength a Flint Hoof Boar, then you can get Selesnya Charm. So it's going to have to be either a smaller creature or something that you're willing to get Selesnya Charmed, or you're going to have to overwhelm the Selesnya Charms with Thundermaws and Thragtusks and all that.
So Joseph Greer mulligans to 6 there. You said walk over the mountains. I feel like mountain walk represents walking through the mountains, like going through the caves, because everyone walks over the mountains.
Sure, you know the secret passages in the dwarven mines, and so you can
Yeah, in
sneak
fact,
by.
one of the first mountain walkers was some kind of
Yeah.
miner, I think.
But some of the mountain walkers are goats.
Well,
goats are definitely just, you know, hanging
just
out.
walking over the mountain.
Well, I guess the goats know the safe paths and all that. You know, they're sure of foot. So that makes sense for them to mountain walk.
So there's some kind of pause in the action here.
Looks
Not
like
sure
Joseph
what's
Greer
going
stepped away
on.
from the table, maybe used the restroom or something.
Is that what he's done?
Maybe it's a sick mind game. Unlikely, but possible.
He'll come back to the table and then mulligan to 5.
There's a great story of back in the day. I don't want to use names, but two.
Back in the day. What is that for you?
It was
like
ba-
3 months ago?
It was actually before my time.
Oh, okay.
I just heard this story.
So 6 months ago.
Where two players who did not like each other and were not having the friendliest of matches.
Uh-huh.
A player attacked the opponent down to 2 after drawing a shock, and then called a judge and asked to use the restroom.
And then
The
went to the
opponent,
bathroom.
the opponent's just like, come on, man, just like play out the game. You know, like we're both at really low. Like you're just gonna die on my next attack, or I'm dead, like whatever. And the guy's just like, no, I have to use the bathroom. So he calls the judge over, and the judge is just like, no, you can't use the restroom. It's like, just play. He's just like, appeal. Like I need to use the restroom. I know I'm allowed to. So the head judge comes over. Head judge is just like, dude, just play it out. Like, you know, be a reasonable human. And the guy's just like, no, I know my rights. Like I'm allowed to use the restroom. He's like, all right. So sure enough, he goes to the restroom. Is gone for like 4 or 5 minutes. Finally comes back and it's just like, all right, I'm back. We got a time extension. He's like, sure, you got a time extension. He's like, all right, cool. Sits back down. He's like, all right, shock you.
So it's funny. It's funny. I just finished writing an article that I submitted to Cedric, the editor, and one of the scenarios is the bathroom thing.
Yes.
The article is titled "Don't Be That Judge." And the thing is, I've heard these stories of judges who deny players the right to go to the bathroom.
I've been denied
Yeah.
a restroom break.
And you should absolutely appeal that ruling every time because, as I
did.
say in the article, it's a basic human right
Yeah.
to go to the bathroom. But in this scenario that you mentioned, I mean, I would
Yeah.
let the guy go to the bathroom, but as soon as he came back and like shocked the guy and it was an obvious slow roll,
That's got to be a warning
I would give him
for
an unsporting conduct
unsportsmanlike, yeah.
minor because that's just
Agreed.
You're wasting all of our time.
That's exactly how I would handle it as well. But yeah, that story is pretty insane. Actually, speaking of bathroom stories, as we're filling time while we're waiting for the players to be ready for Game 2 of the finals here in Atlanta, Brad Nelson, former Player of the Year, Star City Zone, when he was on his hot streak, in what was it, 2010?
10?
I think.
I believe.
He actually used the restroom a lot. Like between every game, he was going to the bathroom, and it was just sort of his way to collect himself, calm down, wash his face, and then go back refocused and ready to play another match. Think about how the first game played out, and then get it out of his mind, and figure out how to sideboard all that. That's his way of collecting himself. So he did this at a bunch of pro tours and whatnot as he was tearing it up, and he was doing this weird bathroom thing. And he was killing it. So people actually speculated that he had like a walkie-talkie hidden in the bathroom where he could like phone a friend and try to
phone a friend.
I swear to God, this happened. People genuinely were suspicious of him using the restroom because it's just like nobody could be that good. Nobody could win that regularly. We're gonna we have to be suspicious, right? It's just like, no, man, he plays straight up. He's just really good.
Okay, so apparently something happened over there in the finals match, and we're going to throw it over to Glenn Jones in the sideboard to give us an update on what happened in the match. So take it away, Glenn. Let us know what happened.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Sideboard here in Atlanta. I'm Glenn Jones. I'm afraid I'm not going to tell you a whole lot about what's going on in the finals. I will say that a judge is currently conducting a quick investigation into something that may have happened earlier in the tournament, and they've just paused the finals in order to come to their conclusions. Obviously, we're not going to talk about the nature of the investigation or anything like that, as there's really not any point until any penalties are actually assessed. I figured I would go ahead and update you guys on the semifinals, where I know it got a little confusing at the end when a Sigarda was cast with an illegal amount of mana available. What wound up happening in that instance was the head judge, Brian Perlman, decided that given there had been very little actual change to the board, despite it having been technically a full turn cycle and a half that had passed, he would go ahead and rewind to the point where the Sigarda was cast, as you guys eventually saw the board resolve itself to. So that meant each player had to put a random card back from their hands that they had drawn up to that point. The Sigarda was then placed back into the player's hand, and he couldn't cast the Sigarda, had no other spells, obviously, and conceded the game. So in case that was unclear, I hope that kind of illuminates the situation for you guys. Basically, just made a mistaken land drop, and that cost him the game. Both players seemed good-natured about it. It was, a mistake, and everyone genuinely feels fine about it. Moving on into the finals, they obviously have began a game. You saw that game play out just now with Joseph taking the lead very narrowly with a peeled Hellrider. I'm going to go ahead and throw it back to the booth with Ricky and AJ, and they'll continue to fill while we await the judges to let us restart the tournament. So we're just trying to protect the integrity of your tournament. Enjoy the show.
So some interesting stuff happening in this tournament. Little drama. I like it.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Glenn Jones, for that update on everything, especially the Sigarda situation.
Yeah, I was a little confused on that, but
I would not have backed it up, but I am also notorious among judges as being very conservative on these issues, and not necessarily a mistake to do it either way. I think the head judge, Brian Perlman, had a lot of good information there, so he was content with the backup situation.
yeah, I mean he was right there, so and it's up to his discretion. I'm not a judge, so I can't say.
We talked about it once, though.
I would say that if I were a judge, I think I would not have rewound it, but it's not like that unreasonable to rewind it. And he decided to rewind it, and yeah, Rudy just killed his opponent. He had nothing left. Weird stuff.
Yeah.
You do not see that every day. That does not happen at every tournament.
And the investigation going on, hopefully everything turns out okay.
Yeah,
we may find out some information later.
I was gonna say, we don't have any information on that. We know what you guys know, but we know something's going on, so we'll find out. Until then, we are in game 2. Rudy's on the play again. Didn't work out for him last time. Made well, we're not even sure that it was a bad attack. He made a possibly questionable attack. I haven't gone over the iterations yet. I don't know if you have.
I think he should have attacked with all 3.
Yeah.
Because it would have
my instinct.
It would have forced Joseph to block with 2 creatures, which included a Hellrider and a
Gore-Clan Rampager, and then the Strangler guys that chumped. So then a Thundermaw is 10, and a Hellrider is 10, with Rudy at 12.
So if you take away the 3rd attacker, so he ripped the Hellrider and had Hellrider, Gore-Clan Rampager. If you take away one of those, you don't have enough damage.
Yeah.
On the back
Attack with all 3 was my instinct, but I didn't go through the iterations. But yeah, it checks out. I think that's a winning continuation. So it looks like Rudy might have gifted that first game to Joseph Greer.
The only question would be to make sure the Avacyn's Pilgrim was the smallest creature on Rudy's side of the board. It would have had 3 counters, right? So it needs to be a 4/4.
Yeah, it would have been lethal in 2.
With the Gore Clan.
Yes, it would have traded with the Gore Clan, or been lethal in 2. Either way, it's you're good. Yeah, so that was game 1. Pretty interesting stuff.
So costly mistake in the finals, and Rudy Briksza apparently has been making a lot of mistakes. We heard about
He keeps it fast and loose.
missing the voice of resurgence triggers.
Letting his opponent cast the cigar off one wide.
That's the opponent making a mistake, but it's really in your best interest to catch that, to make sure.
Yes.
Because if, for example, I had been the head judge and I had not chosen to rewind,
Yeah, or if he wasn't on camera or we weren't in the booth and pointed it out, you would have just continued and just lost. If that was in the Swiss, you would have just lost.
Yeah. So make sure to pay attention to what you're doing, but also to what your opponent is doing.
Yes.
And the same goes for his opponent there, Jimmy Smith. If he had been paying attention, he did have
the white land.
He did have the correct land that he could have played. So Magic the Gathering is not an easy game.
It is not.
I'm sitting here in the booth. It's very easy to see all the action from above, literally.
Yeah.
When you're sitting there at the table, I can tell you I have made so many mistakes just...
we all have. It's a hard game.
Right after making the play, I go, well, that was the wrong
What
play.
have I done? Yeah, that we've all felt that feeling, for sure.
What's one of the worst mistakes you've made as a player? Do you even remember?
There's so many.
Or do you just try to forget them?
I do try and forget them. Like I'll learn the lesson from it, but then I'll forget that it happened. You got to have a short-term memory because you don't want to like go on tilt in the middle of a tournament, and you don't want to let things haunt you for the coming week, which definitely has happened to me in the past when I was a little even more younger. That was something that I dealt with that was pretty hard for me, where I didn't have that short-term memory developed, and I let things bother me.
Right, so you make a mistake in round 2 of the tournament, and then
the tournament's over. It compounds itself, and
losses.
But I've matured a little since then, and it's something that everybody in the game has to deal with. In any game, really, any sport, any strategy game, anything, any walk of life. You have to be able to. You don't want to pretend it didn't happen. You need to learn the lesson from the mistake. But once you've learned that lesson and let it sort of sink in, then just let it go. It's okay. It's over. It's done with. Don't let it like clench on your heart. Just let it go.
You mentioned sports. You hear all the time in sports when people are interviewed after a tough loss, the athletes always say we're just taking it one game at a time.
Yep.
We're just focused on the next game. And it seems like a cliche, but that's absolutely true. So
yeah, I mean, you see a place kicker miss a 30-yard field goal and then go back out and kick a 45-yard game winner. If he had that rotting in the back of his head, he would have been at a great disadvantage.
Rudy Briksza has to get over that mistake in game 1, not attacking with all his creatures to put Joseph on the back foot. Starts off with a scavenging ooze here.
And it looked like an unflinching courage in his hand, so optimally you'd rather put it on something that would get up to 5 toughness so it can't get mortars. But Pillar takes out the Scavenging Ooze first, and a Scavenging Ooze of his own to follow up. Joseph Greer with a quite strong start here in game 2.
Forcing Rudy to deal with his Scavenging Ooze.
Loxodon Smiter comes down. Now, this is a good Unflinching Courage target, and it doesn't look like Joseph Greer has an answer right now, and that's going to be really hard to race.
So Joseph attacks there, representing... Well, he's got the...
he's got a Wolf Run for 2, so he could be offering a trade, but I definitely don't think that trade is just being offered straight up. I think that's a sort of bluff for the Rampager, and sure enough, it was Gorkland Rampager that comes down after an Unflinching Courage on the Loxodon Smiter. That is a very brave elephant, hitting for a 12-point life swing. That's hard to race. Now, Wolf Run does help a little against the Unflinching Courage in that you can offer a trade of just the Rampager with a Wolf Run activation for the Loxodon Smiter. You're still getting blown out by pump spells, but...
Gorkland Rampager, Selesnya Charm.
Yeah, a lot of things blow that out, but at least then you're only getting 1 for 1 rather than 2 for 1 in the case of a double block, which is the normal way that you deal with it. And it looks like he's going to go Strangleroot Geist and try and double block, which is basically the same, because the Strangleroot Geist, the front side of it dies, but the back side of it comes back and can do the same thing with Wolf Run the next turn. It's a little lost value, but a little more mana efficient. So Joseph Greer decides that was more important. Looks like Rudy has a Mizium Mortars in hand, and a Flinthoof Boar comes down. Mizium Mortars on the Rampager, there we go. And hit for another 12-point life swing with the Angry Elephant.
So Joseph needs to stop thinking about racing here and really hold back and try to deal with this unflinching courage.
Yeah, in no
Smiter.
iteration of reality was Joseph Greer going to race a 6-point lifelinker. It was definitely going to have to be attrition down with Wolf Run through any tricks. I say attrition down, but the only attrition portion of it is through tricks.
So trample you for 5.
Yeah, he does block to get one more power on his Strangleroot Geist so that he is a little lighter on mana for his Wolf Run activation on the next turn. Scavenging Ooze gains a little life, gives him a little padding, and grows to a 3/3. And now we have to see what Joseph Greer's plan is to deal with this 6/6 lifelinker. A Flint Hoof Boar. So it looks like he's still trying to double block rather than Wolf Run, although his life total is low enough that if Rudy has a trick and he's getting single blocked, then he's facing lethal. But I think that might be his only way to win, actually. Because if you get doubled and he has a trick, or if you double and he has a trick, then you're losing anyway. So playing around a trick there doesn't really make any sense. In the Wolf Run, you only have to trade 1 card for it rather than 2. But it looks like Rudy does not have a trick because he's thinking about staying home until he draws one, not wanting to trade for 2 creatures.
He casts the Voice of Resurgence just in case Joseph has any tricks up his sleeve.
And it looks like he does pass. Joseph Greer's just got another land and an Elvish Mystic, but at least he's sort of stable for now. Now it's just a matter of, Rudy drawing to a trick or another Mizium Mortars or something else to break through, maybe another Unflinching Courage. Meanwhile, on the other side of things, Joseph Greer is going to have to draw Volcanic Strength if he's ever going to want to attack pretty much ever again through that 6/6.
Boros Reckoner not bad for Rudy.
Yeah, that can theoretically get in there, which it does.
He's going to attack with it. Joseph chooses just to chump block with the Elvish Mystic.
Which is now going
with
to
Wolf Run.
Trade for both.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that chump block. You're losing.
You might as well Wolf Run it for 2, right? And then if he wants to trade the Reckoner for the Mystic and a 3/3, then that's fine. And if he wants the first strike, then he doesn't kill both elves. Plus you get the extra creature in the yard for the Scavenging Ooze. I actually think that, yeah, I agree with you. I would have Wolf Run for 2 there.
I think you want to find a way to kill that Reckoner because the longer this goes, I mean, you can't just keep chumping it. Those triggers are going to kill you eventually.
Yeah, chumping it there, like you're losing 2 creatures anyway, it seems pretty bad.
But maybe the plan is just to get the Scavenging Ooze up to a 4/4, and then you can force him to hold the Reckoner back for now.
But that plan still works, right? Like,
yeah, that's...
if you pump to 3 and Rudy chooses to trade the Reckoner and get a trigger for 3, then if he targeted the Ooze, then the creatures are already in the graveyard when that target goes in the stack, so the Ooze can grow twice in response. So now Rudy has a much more intimidating board. He plays his 6 land untapped. This looks like a Zealous Conscripts.
So he plays, yeah.
And that is the game.
Played it untapped so he would have the green mana to activate the Scavenging Ooze.
And attacks for lethal.
Well, so Rudy took it back, wins game 2, really on the back of the Unflinching Courage. That did a lot of damage, gained him a lot of life, and put Joseph in a position where he could not attack anymore. Had to hold back all of his creatures to make sure that he had enough blockers to keep himself alive.
Rudy even had the luxury of playing it on something that would grow above 4 so that it couldn't be Mizium Mortars. And at that point, Joseph Greer's number of answers is greatly limited.
Yeah, he really has no answers to a 6/6.
I think he needed to try
answer.
and attempt to trade with it immediately, because you're never out racing it, and the sooner you start trying to trade for it, the less damage you're taking, the less life they're gaining, and the more chances you get at trading for it so you can run them out of tricks.
Yeah, if they have a trick, you have to force it out at some point.
Exactly.
It's a very common tactic in Limited. Even if you know that they have a giant growth, you just offer a trade while they'll use it.
Yeah, you have to offer a 1-for-1 so that they'll take it, so that you don't get 2-for-1 later, basically. Or just beaten down while you're taking you're taking the damage because you don't want to get 1-for-1, you know?
Right. So Joseph, maybe he's got to have zealous conscripts of his own. If
It's
this
possible.
becomes an aura match, volcanic strength versus unflinching courage, taking their pantsed creature may be the way to go.
Yeah, that is definitely a viable way to play it. We saw Pillar of Flame used there. That card is also very important for this matchup. A lot of different sub-games going on, but the most important of which has to be Unflinching Courage.
Yeah, and Greer got to draw those volcanic strengths.
Yes, the pants
Walk-
versus pants.
Walk through the mountains.
Or over them if you're a goat.
If you are a goat, you can go over the mountains. How do you feel like the other land walks? What's
The only one that
flavor
doesn't
behind them?
really make sense to me is Planeswalk.
Planes, because it's planes.
Yeah.
Everyone. Maybe that's why they don't print that many of them.
Yeah,
it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Like what, you can navigate the open field?
I like Swamp Walk the best
Swamp Walk's cool.
because you can, you sink into the swamp and Swamp Walk just kind of
Yeah,
hovers or slides over the swamps.
yeah. You're
Glides.
you're either a spirit floating over it, or you're like like Stalker Hag or something like that, that's like used to being in the muck and can just kind of power through it, and or you're like part of the muck, so you're one with the swamp. That makes sense. Island Walk also makes sense. You're like swimming.
But that's not Island Walk. You're just swimming.
No, but you can
They
get
should
from
have called it swimming.
you can get from island to island.
Okay. So you're not walking over the islands. You're walking between the islands.
Yeah.
All right. I would still call it swimming,
Swimming would have been good.
unless you're.
We got to go back in time to Alpha and tell them, you
Look.
got flying, we need swimming.
Swim. They tried with Island Home.
Island Home
Kind
was,
of a
yeah,
swimming mechanic.
yeah, a sea creature. That was unsuccessful.
Okay, 1-1. This is the finals of StarCityGames.com Atlanta Standard Open. Joseph Greer's on the play. He has a Rootbound Crag. Let's see who takes it down here. The final Standard Open of the Innistrad constructed Standard.
Looks like double Buddyland draws, but Joseph Greer has a basic mountain on the next turn. Rudy Briksza is going to have another Buddyland, but he does have the Avacyn's Pilgrim to try and jump back ahead.
Hey there, little buddy.
Joseph Greer looks like he's going to pillar that immediately. Can't let him get too far ahead on mana. And mana accelerant of his own in the form of an Arbor Elf, but that is not an active Arbor Elf, and the land drop is a Kessig Wolf Run.
We'll have to make sure to keep our eyes on that and make sure he does not try to untap the Rootbound Crag.
Yes, I've seen many players try and do that. But until he draws a forest, that is a Mons Goblin Raiders. Looks like Scavenging Ooze is the play with no land drop, let alone a green one. And it looks like a Miracle Bonfire from Rudy, and he's thinking about whether he wants to cast it. I mean, how do you not cast it for 2 here? And sure enough, he does. Especially because with the motion that he had, his bonfires face up from then on, so it's not like Joseph Greer is going to play into it.
Right.
So Bonfire for 2 takes down the 2 creatures, and Rudy also misses a land drop.
But he's got the 4/4.
All right.
Hellrider, that's 6,
Land off
7,
the
8
top.
damage.
Land off the top, very, very important for Joseph Greer. And looks like Smiter's probably going to have to stay home here. Amizium Mortars taking out Hellrider is not bad. Maybe Rudy can get in for 4. No, he decides to stay home. He's opening himself up to being Rampagered here, but if he just gets Wolf Run, I think he's fine with that. He could also get Volcanic Strength. Even though he doesn't have a mountain, so it's not unblockable, it would make it a 5-5 versus a 4-4, which is obviously not profitable for Rudy. Going to chump block with his 4-4, and sure enough, that's what's happening.
There it is, Volcanic Strength. Not walking over or through the mountains, but the strength part, good enough.
Yeah, and he does trade with, or chump with the 4-4. That is a conservative play. I feel like he must have a Selesnya Charm and is trying to preserve his life total if that's his line. Yeah, it looks like he does have a Selesnya Charm. My reads are on this morning, Riki. Wish I was playing today.
And a post-combat Strangleroot Geist wouldn't really attack with it anyway into the 4-4, although if you're expecting the chump block...
Yeah, it might have been profitable to send there.
Scavenging Ooze on defense.
He also has Wolf Run, so like the front side of the Strangleroot Geist represents a lot of damage. So here we go. Attacks.
He's going to block.
That is an interesting
goes
block.
To block the Flint Hoof board, despite the fact that he has Selesnya
Oh,
Charm.
what a trick!
He was looking for that Gore Clan Rampager so he could
Unreal.
do the Selesnya Charm in response.
Why would Joseph Greer Rampager there? He has Wolf Run if he wanted to trample. He doesn't have to invest a card. He was just going for the throat, going for the kill, and all of a sudden, Rudy is way ahead. He can now...
He's still holding back, though. His life total is precarious. Doesn't want to lose to a Thundermaw Hellkite or a Hellrider off the top like he did in game number 1. So he holds back that Scavenging Ooze. He can start gaining some life with it.
The Strangleroot Geist can't even trade for the front. Like, you can't trade front side for front side here because the Scavenging Ooze eats it while it's still in the graveyard before it undies. And then the Scavenging Ooze is then going to continue and just grow and get out of control.
Yeah, so attacking with the Strangleroot guy. Okay, plays a second one. Puts some pressure on.
Is he Hellbent? Was that his last card?
Looks like it.
This is definitely a winning position for Rudy.
So what just happened there is the Strangleroot Geist attacks. Rudy blocks one of them with Voice of Resurgence. They both die, and then he says, I will eat your Strangleroot Geist in response to the Undying trigger. And he also remembers his own trigger and gets the Elemental token.
Wow, that is a sick sequence from Rudy Briksza. That blowout with the Selesnya Charm, the Rampager, that was a huge turning point in this game. And it looks like Rudy's far enough ahead. He's comfortable attacking with the Scavenging Ooze, not going to eat anything to grow it. Looks like he's just passing. If you're just going to pass and pump, you might as well pump on your turn, get a little extra damage in, but small mistake.
Doesn't have any instance here. Rudy has made a few small mistakes, but he had that big heads-up play where he blocked the Volcanic Strength Flint Hoof Boar to kind of bait Joseph into using Gore Clan Rampager.
That was a strong
Blood
induce.
Rush to get the trample damage over, and then he had the Selesnya Charm in response. I mean, knowing you have the charm, you probably would have just gone to block the other creature, right? The Strangleroot Geist, and just charmed the...
I would have just not blocked. I would have just taken 2 and charmed the 5/5, but that's obviously just way worse than what Rudy did. You're free rolling to at least a Wolf Run activation to choke his mana when he tries to trample over your ooze that you then Selesnya Charm.
So Joseph now Mizium Mortars on the Elemental token and attacks with Strangleroot Geist. Rudy's gonna eat 2 creatures with the Scavenging Ooze.
Yeah, see, that's just
Gains
2 missed
2
damage
life.
from last turn, but wow, his hand is insane too.
But doesn't seem like he's gonna need it. Joseph Greer, as you said, is hellbent. No cards in hand. And Rudy's got plenty. He's got plenty. He's got to decide how he's gonna finish this off. And he does want to finish it off. Make sure you
close the door. Yeah, these decks
win.
can definitely pull some crazy Hellrider Thundermaw sequences and kill you out of nowhere.
So this time he
as
does
we saw
gain
in game 1.
the life. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. That's gonna
Exactsies. And Rudy takes it down.
At him. He is relieved.
Yeah, he is. He should have lost that game. Unreal. Rudy Briksza.
Fantastic run.